No, I'm busy tonight, actually.
Welcome back, gang, to the Jerry HotPants Club podcast. We're here live somewhat at the Creatine Compound. With me, as always, is...
I'm Chris.
Magic Mike, and in the background is...
I'm Yusuf.
Crazy-ass dolphin lover. So, tonight, well, tomorrow morning by the time you see it, we're going to talk about a topic for me that is real close to home. And a few others that I know, and that is addiction. I am a person in recovery. I've got 4.5 years under my belt, clean. And I think what we're going to talk about tonight is the different ways that some people do get clean. I belong to a certain program that helps me constantly. But there are other avenues. Some people use medically assisted treatment, and one thing that people talk about a lot is marijuana maintenance, because it's legal. And
recently legal.
Yeah, which kind of pisses me off, because when I was still getting high, like, I had to hide smoking a joint, and now people leave blunts in the ashtray at my work all the time. Like, it ain't no big thing.
I'm getting smoke blown in my face every day now.
Yeah. Like, you can walk in places with your fucking vape pen and ain't nobody going to say a word to you, you know?
Yeah.
And I don't have issue with that. I really don't. And it's not a jealousy thing, because I am an advocate for the legalization of marijuana. I just don't need to take up arms and sign petitions in March. I can voice my opinion in the same way that a lot of other people do. But addiction, you know, there's people who are probably watching this who will say, well, addiction's a choice, you know, getting high is a choice. And even though the AMA declared it an actual disease a long time ago.
What's AMA?
American Medical Association. Mm. They declared it a disease. It's the pleasure centers in our brains are wired differently. So they're more prone to...
Yours is wired very differently.
Yeah, I know. And that's okay. I mean, I have an obsession issue, clearly.
With Jerry HotPants.
Who doesn't? Tell me one person in this room who doesn't.
It's recent for me. I just caught on to this Jerry HotPants fad.
We love you, Jerry.
We love you, Jerry.
I mildly am entertained by you, Jerry. Now, you are for... So, for me, personally, the way that I work a program of recovery means I do not use anything that has properties like marijuana. I don't need medically assisted treatment of any kind. I know others have a different way that they do this, and I'm not knocking anybody on MATs, but I do not believe that you get the full potential from life itself if you're high. I just don't. And I mean, again, this isn't, I'm not taking a shot at stoners either, because some people can enjoy life and their lives don't become unmanageable as a result of smoking a couple of joints. But me, if I smoke joints or have an edible, like, I'm off to the races. I will steal shit, and I will kick doors in, and I'll be under a fucking bridge in no time. And that's personally me.
Mm-hmm.
What are your thoughts?
On addiction or on pot?
Well, both. Let's start with addiction.
What about addiction? What am I talking about?
So, do you believe it to be a disease? Or is it a matter of choice?
I like to call it more of an allergy. So when people who are addicts consume mind-altering substances, something happens that changes them into a different person, like an allergy. It makes more sense to me to call it an allergy than a disease, even if it is a disease.
Well, I mean, but you admit that people use stuff, right?
People use things, yes.
And they change. You know, like there's people who say, well, as long as all I do is stick with vodka, as long as I'm not smoking crack, I'm okay. They still get behind the wheel of their car and kill somebody. Or, still drink their fucking house away. Still can't meet their obligations. But it's not crack, so they're okay. I
don't know anybody going homeless that's like saying their alcoholism is not as bad as smoking crack, but I mean, I still, like I said, I'm kind of unprepared for this. Addiction is addiction. What are we talking about addiction? What about it?
So what I've been hearing a lot lately, and we were talking about this earlier a little bit, about marijuana maintenance,
Okay,
right?
you want me to talk about marijuana and addiction?
Yeah.
You ever sucked a dick for pot?
Okay, Bob. No, I haven't.
All right,
13 times.
Okay.
That's low numbers for Bay City.
It wasn't Bay City.
Where are you from again? Israel?
No, man.
Bro. like the opposite.
I know. That's part of the joke. Jesus. No sense of humor in this room tonight. Holy shit.
So, for me, I've been an advocate for cannabis legalization for a number of years. What the government has done to its own citizens, destroying generations of families by incarcerating people and then ripping apart families. People can't find jobs because they're felons. I mean, this has been going on for like 80, 100 years. Or, pot used to be legal in this country a long, long time ago.
Yeah.
There used to be, I think, like George Washington and like Thomas Jefferson had like hemp fields or something. Like,
yeah, for different purposes. They weren't smoking cannabis; they were growing hemp.
It might have been. Yeah, well,
Rope and stuff, you mean?
yeah, but there's a bunch of reasons hemp got outlawed. There's a lot of stuff to do with nylon and DuPont, and then some stuff about a bunch of racist stuff that got done by the police to outlaw and scare the general public. Just the government's been trying to control and destroy. I mean, imagine if you're, 24 years old, you have a young family, right? And you get caught with some pot, 60 years ago, and you go to prison for a few years, right? Or like Tommy Chong famously went to prison for getting caught with all those, or selling bongs or something, right? Yep. You know what I mean? Like, and then you can't take care of your family. You get out, you're a felon. Your family, your kid hasn't had his father there. The mother's been raising the children alone. It's just been ridiculous. And then so many things have been, I smell pot in the car. Oh, it's probable cause. You know what I mean? And then they're getting people just in trouble for the most ridiculous thing. It's been a scam. Here's what it's been. It's been a scam, and it should be. They're overturning all this stuff. People who are currently incarcerated for cannabis crimes are being released, and their records are being wiped clean all over the country.
And that's a good thing. And I agree with you 110%. I think the entirety of illegal cannabis use in this country was created under racist ideals and greed ideals. And I also think that there has been I know people personally who went to prison for possession of marijuana, and I'm talking minuscule amounts.
Yeah.
And that ultimately created, this record that follows them around. And now they have to do 1099 jobs. They can't, they're not allowed to, because they have this past with them, right? They're these dirty drug dealing felons. Mm-hmm. When all that was they had enough weed to just get themselves high.
Yeah.
But and I'm all for it. I'm all for the legalization, and I think a lot of these records need to be erased or expunged.
Yeah.
But as a matter of, and this is kind of what we were talking about earlier, as I said, I'm all for abstinence-based recovery. Because recovery from addiction is not a just stop getting high thing. There's things in my life I have to change. I can't go certain places. I can't see certain people anymore. I can't hang out with the crowd of people that actively engages in silly ass shit. Like, we do silly enough shit as it is. Could you imagine if we were all fucking getting high together?
All bad, baby. All bad.
We'd be at the fucking SeaWorld trying to climb in with the dolphins in moments. But you're for people who are coming off really heavy drugs, weaning down and just going to pot.
Me, yeah. 110%, yeah.
So is this something in the way of a temporary thing, or are you okay with it lifelong?
I think that if you want to smoke pot, I think that you probably should. I just don't. I think that most people will grow tired of it over time till they get older. I mean, once they get older, I think that they'll probably find that it's not conducive to their lifestyles once they get into like 40 years old, 50 years old. They just might not smoke like they used to when they were younger. That's what I've seen from a lot of people. They just kind of, I mean, they have their jobs, they have their families, and they recreationally consume cannabis. I don't.
Well, I know a gentleman who he was looking at prison term, and he took an intensive probationary program. Leading up to that, he was on heavy duty drugs. Mm-hmm. He was on benzos, all kinds of crazy shit, like breaking into houses, committing all kinds of felonies. And since his release from this heavy intensive probationary program, he drinks every now and again, and he smokes weed every now and again, and his life is okay. Mm-hmm. His life is okay. Now, on the other hand, I have a close personal friend who, abstained from substances for about 8 years, and he started smoking a little bit of weed, and, now he's on the fucking needle religiously, and he can't straighten shit out. And it started with him, and yes, if somebody wants to get high, they're going to get high. And that's the fucking cunningness of a mental disorder, which is what addiction. I mean, not mental disorder, but a fucking disease. You get high because you want to get high eventually,
right?
But like, if we have this perspective of being clean for 8 years, 10 years, we haven't put anything in our bodies, then we start with something that was never our thing. Like I was on opiates of all kinds. And before I got clean, 2 weeks before I got clean, I thought, well, I'm going to try and get off of this shit, and I'm going to smoke some weed. And the weed fucking terrified the shit out of me.
Yeah, I don't think it would work in that situation as a substitute.
No, and that's my personal journey. But you take somebody that's like, if I were to smoke a joint now at 4.5 years, I'd be terrified. I'd be absolutely terrified. And then I would be ashamed. I'd be absolutely ashamed, like I threw away my clean time, and now, fuck it, I'm just going to go get some fucking dope. And I'm not, again, I'm saying this from personal experience, but I know that is the experience of a great many people.
All right. Well, it sounds like it's not going to work for you, but I mean, I know people that did a lot of drugs for a long time, and then they got older, and they were like, you know what? I'm not going to die, and I'm not going to go to prison, so I'm just going to smoke pot. And that's what they do. And they're like, this is fine. This is recreational. This is okay. I also like how Michigan lets you grow it. I think it's a time filler. Me and Tommy Chong have both, I used to talk about it all the time. I heard Tommy Chong say it a couple years ago that they ruined pot when they legalized it. And it's kind of joking, but kind of serious. Because when you were a kid and weed was illegal and you were young, you'd be like, man, I got $20. Your buddy's got $10. Your other buddy's got a car. Your other buddy's got the plug. Y'all run around all day, get bullshitted. You know what I'm saying? It takes you like 4 hours. You finally get like your $30 worth of weed. And then, so it took you like 6 hours. Now it filled your whole day. Right?
It could be like that with crack nowadays though, too.
I don't know anything about that. But now you just go to the store and get the best weed you've ever smoked for like $80 an eighth. And let me say something to all the dispensaries that are selling $80 eighths. If you ever try to sell me an eighth for $80, I will fight you in your store. You might as well pull out a gun and just try to rob me. And like, that's bullshit, man. Go to hell with your $80 eighth. So you out your Bro, there's no way.
I mean, I understand that they have overhead now that they're operating out in the open versus from the trunk of their car or
They're lying.
grandmama's pussy.
The reason that I think that any of this really comes to mind is because there's a stigma that follows addicts around.
Mm-hmm. That's part of why marijuana was medical at first, I think, was to break that stigma. So you could fall back and say, it's for medical purposes,
Yeah, it was. I mean, there are people I know whose lives do become unmanageable as a result of the use of marijuana. And I there's a guy in particular I know, if he didn't smoke a joint by about 7:30 in the morning, he was the worst human being to be around. He stole thousands of dollars from his job just to pay for his weed habit.
For weed, man? For weed?
Yes, he did. Yes, he did. And ultimately...
So he needed money.
Yeah. Well,
so the problem might not have been the weeds. It might have been just that he was broke.
Jesus Christ.
Right? He needed money, bro.
No. For weed.
For weed.
Motherfucker always had gas in his car. He had a bumping system in his car for the time.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Good for him. Probably stole it.
I think he did. I think he did. But what I'm getting at is that the stigma that follows us around, there are still family. I've been welcomed back into my family, mostly. I've identified that the villain in my story was not my dad or my mom or schools or any of that stuff. It was me. Mm-hmm. But I still have friends out there. I still have family out there that doesn't trust me and probably never will. Because I hurt them. I did terrible things to them, and I can't expect them to forgive me overnight. And, maybe not for the rest of my life or theirs. Mm-hmm. But their personal experiences, fuck off. Their personal experiences with me.
Yeah.
No, you're right. It is okay.
Yeah,
it is okay because I'm not going to lose any sleep over it. But their personal experiences with me condition them to just, because I was close to them and they loved me, right? It could condition them to have this hatred for people with substance abuse issues. People who are addicts. I hear people come into my work and they're, the EMTs come in and like, we just should fucking let them die. I'm tired of going on Narcan calls and da-da-da-da-da. If EMTs hadn't gone on a Narcan call to me at a restroom, at a restaurant, I'd be dead. Mm-hmm. And I wouldn't be here right now.
Shout out to the EMTs. They have a really hard job. I don't know how many times I've woken up in the back of an EMT and just kind of freaking out on them because it was just like, what is going on?
Yeah.
I made it a habit now. Anytime an EMT comes through my drive-thru, I pay for their meal.
Yeah.
That's good shit.
I pay for their meal just because I recognize the horrors of their job. And I'm like, you know what, man? I know, like, I was a piece of shit to deal with. So I'm like, man, let me at least pay for your food.
No, and so was I. And I agree with that. And so it's difficult when I hear these people who say, and they're doing it begrudgingly. It's their job.
Yeah.
But then,
they're human.
And but it's difficult to hear somebody talking about that. And then when they come up to the counter and they're talking to me, they're like, you fucking pieces of shit, And I'm like, I'm one of those pieces of shit. Just because I'm not high today doesn't mean that I won't be tomorrow if I'm not diligent in what I do with my life. I got to keep things changed. I got to keep things fresh. And I have to make certain admittances to myself and other people that, look, I have an issue, and it's not about drugs. Like, I'm an obsessive, compulsive asshole. And, and I need to do things to combat it. And so the thing about marijuana maintenance, right, is that I guess the question I would ask you then, is it okay to say, all right, you've had 5.5, 6, 7, 8 years of complete abstinence from all drugs, and you get an itch and you start smoking weed, right? Obviously, do you condone or condemn that?
I mean, if you've been clean for a number of years and you decide you want to smoke pot,
yeah, I mean, how do you think it's going to end?
I mean, if you just want to smoke weed, you're just going to smoke weed. But if you want to do other things, you're lying to yourself and you're going to smoke weed and then you're going to go do whatever else you want to do. But if you've made it up in your mind that you're just going to smoke pot because you don't want to die and you don't want to do anything illegal, then you're probably just going to smoke pot.
So you don't believe in different layers of subconscious, that basically you have to travel through different doors to get from A to Z? So, for instance, that first decision would be, hey, I'm going to smoke a joint. But the underlying subconscious that the one decision is leading you to is to go through door A, door B, door C to get to Z, where you get that needle in your arm. You don't think?
Bro, if that's a fucking huge leap.
Well, I mean, I know that you believe in science. We have generally a lot of the same thought processes.
I mean, most people don't go stick needles in their arm after they smoke pot.
Well,
most
people
they don't, but I did.
The large majority.
It took time, but I did. I
definitely did too.
And if I were in, I'm not alone in this. I know that if I faltered enough to say I'm cruising over to the dispensary and I'm gonna get a fucking edible, the end result is gonna be a needle in my arm. Because
I wouldn't recommend getting an edible. That's something totally different than smoking pot.
Well, okay,
that's totally different drug.
If I'm just going to smoke a joint,
I also wouldn't recommend just smoking a joint of some 30% THC. Go get you some good old school, like Afghan Kush or some Maui Wowie, some like 12% THC with all the tannins and all the other shit in there, not just super high crack THC. And sit down and mellow out.
But see, I've learned how to just sit down and mellow out without the need to get high. I've learned how to do that. I don't do it often.
So you are addicted to Red Bull and Newports?
Yeah.
Chronically?
Yeah.
I mean, so let me put it in this way.
Okay, hold on. Before you come, that proves my point, right? That addiction isn't about the specific of a substance, right? Like if I go an entire day without a Red Bull, my body recoils.
Feels like
horror.
shit. Yeah.
And
I drank 4 Red Bulls last Sunday, and I had to drink 2 on Monday because I needed to wean myself off that shit. All that sugar from my body and all that other shit from my brain.
Okay.
Felt like shit. I needed to wean myself off Red Bull. I weaned myself off and stopped though. Yeah. I got some no sugar ones sitting around somewhere.
And so everyone's level of addiction or severity, sickness, if you will. It varies from person to person. Like I know somebody who just stopped doing heroin. They just stopped, and they don't work any kind of recovery program. They don't run in any of the circles that I know. And I mean, the dude is absolutely miserable. He's more miserable than I am.
What's the guy from Wolf of Wall Street? Jordan Belfort or something?
Yeah,
that guy. Of which I've seen this in a lot of occasions. A lot of times you just get so old that the brain just says, I am so over it. I am tired. Leave it all alone. Yeah. And that's how he pretty much described it.
Yeah, that's what I think. I think if you just keep doing it and you don't die, I think eventually you'll probably stop.
But I also believe that I think that the brain has this algorithm, all right? And you have to train the brain to change its algorithm. And that's through means of abstinence and all these other methods, like do not hang out with people that indulge in these things that are bad for you. Don't, the scientific method behind it. But the brain is such a thing, it wants to revert back to that algorithm. It's fighting to do that. And the moment you expose it to any kind of code, it will boom. It will revert you right back to that same old habit.
I got to agree with you. And that's
because I'm saying, you usually think in a very scientific manner, and that's how I justify a lot of things today. I'm like, okay, let me break this down in a way that kind of makes sense, not I feel this way, I feel that way. Because I know that was you the other day that was talking about electrical impulses from your brain going through to the internet. So that's why I'm like, wow, I found that a little crazy.
But it's true when you think about it.
Because for me, for instance, I'm okay with people smoking weed. I know a lot of people that do, but I know for a fact for me, I can't touch it. I'll be homeless within 3 weeks, maybe. Yeah. Off to the races, just like this.
Just smoking weed.
Just smoking weed.
Just smoking weed.
It's a door-to-door thing. It begins to break down the algorithm of the brain.
But if you're just smoking pot, you're just smoking.
See, that's the fallacy.
inhibitions. It lowers inhibitions, and it basically flips that I don't give a fuck switch. And that's the biggest problem that addicts have. We flip that switch down when we get into recovery, and we have to do something in order to keep it there because it's got a spring on it. It wants to bounce back up. The minute a lot of us just go and smoke a joint, that switch gets hit. And now...
It's like a firewall just starting to deteriorate, and then now you're seeing porn pop up everywhere.
yeah. I agree. And it like I said, the last time that I smoked weed, and it was probably that crack weed. I'm sure it was. It took me 2 days to not feel the effects of that shit. Now, you're talking about somebody who was doing every hardcore drug at that time known to man, pills and on the fucking needle. I was just nuts. I was absolutely nuts. The things that it did to my body, mentally and physically, hung out a little while longer, I think, than even the dope. It really did. And, on my journey, the one thing that I'm kind of grateful for, and this is, again, for me personally, I don't have to smoke weed anymore, I'll never have to because I don't think I ever liked it. I really don't. I think I did it because my friends did it. Who really enjoys the actual taste of beer and liquor? It tastes like shit.
I like the taste of beer and liquor. Certain ones.
Same with penis, too.
No. So let's talk about this, man. Let's talk about this. So we've been talking about... So I have a theory that...
Of which you have many.
We're living in a failed country that's been losing a failed war for a long time and hasn't been fighting, right? So I can prove this. The drug war is a failed war that we have not been fighting, right? We haven't been fighting it at all. We claim that we stopped 10% of the drugs coming over the border, right?
Right.
Something like that. We stopped. There's been drugs just pouring over there's a third world country at our southern border that we just don't talk about.
Especially recently. Yeah, you're right.
We have no military treaties with Mexico. We had some treaty with them that they pulled out of sometime around 9/11 or something like that. And all these Central American countries, and we know that there's been a failed drug war, and they've been prosecuting Americans for these drugs, right?
Right.
So, so that's where all the weed used to come from, right? Used to come from over the border. Now it's being grown in the States, and you can get high end shit here. But there's still the cocaine, the heroin, the glass, all this stuff coming over the southern border to poison American cities, right? You hear about towns being flooded with cartel dope all the time. You hear in the rap music, they're just basically glorifying the cartels everywhere you look. They're just talking about lean and drugs and all this shit. So my whole thing is that it's a failed war, and it's one of many that we're losing. I call it the third world war is what we've been losing for decades and decades and decades. If there was no coke, if there was no heroin, if there was no meth, if all the weed hadn't been pouring over the border for decades and decades and decades, how many addicts would there be? There wouldn't have been any drugs. There would have just been booze. So you could still have alcoholism and all that shit. You know what I mean? But all these drugs are the result of the government being failed and then prosecuting the Americans for their failure. And notoriously, it's common knowledge. Barry Seal, Freeway Ricky Ross, Big George Bush, Bill Clinton, CIA bought heroin or cocaine all over and flooded the dopes and flooded the cities with crack in the 80s and shit. I mean, that's common fucking knowledge. They admit to it. There's movies about it. American Made with Tom Cruise. What the fuck has been going on? We've just been letting this happen. The last president talked about building a wall. Recently, his Department of Defense guy put out a book Trump was talking about hitting the cartels with bombs, take out their drug labs. Fentanyl is being made in China and being pushed through the southern border to kill Americans. I mean, it's and no one talks about it. No one talks about it.
Stopping the drugs is not good business for the American government, the American military, and the American police state.
Well,
But
Not for
but
the
I want
police
to
state.
I want to come back to the question. Well, no, because
The police state, it was terrible business for a police state.
yeah.
Terrible.
So if these drugs weren't coming in here, there would still be addicts. If you just leave it to pot and alcohol, we amended the Constitution to outlaw alcohol, and crime shot through the roof because people wanted alcohol no matter what. So you got speakeasies, you got underground bootleggers, you got people everywhere, right?
Right.
Who were making it in they were making bathtub gin.
Right.
Now there's still counties down south that are dry counties where you cannot buy alcohol.
Yeah, I think where Jack Daniels is made famously is dry. But I mean, I don't think you could put the genie back in the bottle right then is what that proves. Around that same time is when they outlawed pot, I think.
It is, but at that same time, you had medical use heroin. You know, you prior
Shout
to
out Bayer, fucking German bastards.
So, that's kind of racist, isn't it? Is it?
I don't know. I think you can say whatever you want about Germans. I'm not entirely sure.
Didn't Bayer do a bunch of work for the Nazis?
I think they did.
I'm a little bit.
Hey, Monsanto, fuck you too, Monsanto.
Okay, I'll agree. Now, there you could get medicinal grade heroin, medicinal grade cocaine.
The government still has all that
Imagine
shit.
Yeah, they do.
during
What are they running
They still
tests
testing on it.
What are they doing? Don't you think they would have figured out how cocaine works? Like, what the fuck?
George Bush too did. He absolutely did.
Imagine having that job, just like I control the inventory, and it's just you just dispense it.
I'd beat that,
bro.
I'd
Right?
beat that. Like, here, take this to this car parked outside, and it's my car.
Abracadabra.
Abracadabra.
On weed. The issue it would be, the drug war was.
It still failed. It's still going on.
Oh, I know.
The fentanyl's just crazy, man.
Well, because and this ties back to the beginning about the stigma around addicts, right? We in this country, we don't help addicts. We criminalize the fuck out of them. We punish them harshly, no matter what.
Well, here's something good to discuss. Talking about criminalization and punishment. So, I've been an advocate for legalization of cannabis for a long time. So you hear I hear a lot of people saying when addicts get caught with possession or small amounts of distribution, it putting them behind bars isn't helping anyone, including society or them. And so that it shouldn't be criminalized, right? And I agree that the addicts should definitely get treatment, not punishment, right? But the Department of Corrections doesn't correct shit. It's just warehousing people and taking in tax dollars. But so criminalization versus legalization, right? Or decriminalization versus legalization, I should say. So I hear a lot of people talking about, well, we got to decriminalize it. Like, I feel we had to legalize cannabis at this point. Like, the genie was out of the bottle. Yeah. It was a losing battle, and they were just over criminalizing the general public for this cannabis shit. This has just been around for 100 years.
Right.
And so now what do we do with the addicts when they get caught? Do we decriminalize drugs? Do we legalize drugs? Because I have a hard time saying, you know what? Heroin's legal. You know what I'm saying? Like, I got a hard time saying that. But so the decriminalization side of it, do you decriminalize it? Because I think they've started to do that in
Wisconsin, I think it was.
No, Portland and Oregon and Washington. I think they've started to do in Oakland too. I think is decriminalize mushrooms. I think Ann Arbor has too. Mm-hmm. So if you get caught by local cops, they can't do shit. I think state cops might be able to do something in Ann Arbor, and obviously national law enforcement can. Pot's still illegal nationally. Yeah. So
and that's
if you grow over 1,000 plants, I think it's a Fed crime.
It is. And there's people still looking to come and get you for that. But so there are other countries, and I'm trying to remember off the top of my head, and I can't. And maybe we'll fact check it later. Maybe we won't. But there is a country. I think maybe it was Portugal. Maybe. Where they have incentivized programs. If you hire an addict, who they do minimum jail time, not prison, minimum jail time. Then they're put on treatment, and then they will go to, like, let's say an auto body garage, and say, hey, hire this guy. He's a drug addict, but we're going to pay half of his salary for a year. And, you know, so we can get them back into the workplace, because a lot of addicts that, you know, one of my things is I look through the jail blotter here and I see who's in, and it's the same people who've been going to jail since I was a teenager. It's the same people. Every time I went to jail, they were always in there. And they're addicts. 90% of them are addicts. And instead of getting any real fucking help, they are labeled an addict, and now they're shunned by society, right? And they cannot, you know, you can't get a good job. You know, you're going to be fucking flipping burgers, selling Slurpees. You're going to be doing whatever, right? No, I'm sorry so now.
It is what it is.
No, it is. They're never going to fucking hire me at NASA, right? Right? So I could leave here today, start a journey of education, okay? A journey of education that would last 10 years and make me the most qualified man in the country to be CEO of fucking NASA or CERN or whatever. And I won't get that job simply because I have a history of being a drug addict.
Fuck you too, CERN.
Yeah, I knew that was the shout out for it. The thing is, decriminalization allows for these, like where these other countries, what they've done is allowed these people to be implemented back into society. The isolation that the addict feels in their own hometown, walking down the street with people pointing the finger, going, oh, shame on them, you know?
So you said that the people that have been going to jail have a shitty education?
I mean...
They can't get a job? They don't have good jobs? They don't have any money?
That's part of it.
Do you think that...
There's people of affluence that I see in there. And
I think that's something that starts from the household.
It does. It does.
You give a child weakness, or you give them strength, and it all comes from the household.
What was the household like? Was there a strong father in the household? Was it, you know, on welfare?
Two in specific that I saw in there, I grew up with. They were in my neighborhood, and the one, his parents are still together to this day. They're old as shit, but you know, he was a GM guy. She was a Baymed nurse. You know, they provided for him.
They give him money, or did they? Did they teach him? Were they there?
Yeah.
GM work overtime. Nurses work 3 days in a row and then sleep for one.
Look, he went to Michigan State. You know, it's
not hard to get in the state.
Whatever. You fucking Walmart Wolverine.
I just think
the point I'm getting at is that he was able to make a life. He was able to make a life that at any life he wanted. He had a good family structure. He had a good family home. He did.
Right.
You know, and I know every intricate detail? No. There's always some factor that you're never going to know about. However, if you want to look at baseline statistics like no father in the home, stuff like that, ain't wrong. He had all that stuff. He still ended up an addict. He got into a motorcycle accident, fucked up his knee, got put on painkillers, and then before you know it, he's on the fucking needle. And he's been there for 12 fucking years.
Okay, well, I mean, one anecdotal case isn't... I mean, a lot of addicts come from broken homes, right? A lot of them come from...
I didn't come from a broken home.
Impoverished neighborhoods. A lot of them...
Nope.
I mean, again, Pete, this is one anecdotal. You're talking about your one example here.
I'm talking about me as an example.
Okay,
too.
That's two. But I mean, when you look at where the drugs are, where are the drugs? The drugs are in the cities, right?
The drugs are in the cities. They're in the country, too, bro.
Right. Where are people getting arrested for it?
Everywhere. Go to fucking Alaska.
How many more people get arrested in the cities than out in the country?
What basis does that have to? I mean, we can talk statistics.
It only makes sense. There's so many more people in the cities that they're getting hit up by. They're getting arrested more. There's more people. There's more cops. You're going to get more arrests in the cities.
Precisely.
You just can't get away from it.
But it doesn't. The foundation for making an addict is irrelevant. Where their household comes from. It's when a lot of these guys I know, and I'm one of them, they reached a point in their life where they said, God, this fucking sucks, right? And somebody took a chance on me and said, we're gonna give you a court-ordered program that is intensive as fuck, and it's either that or the joint. And I can go to fucking jail. I've been doing it for years. So prison wouldn't be that big of a fucking stretch. Right. I'm too cute for prison, but like...
Fucking are.
Yeah, I know.
Like you.
Like, more cushion for the pushing.
Oh, God.
I'd be locked up with a dolphin. So,
Fucking dolphins. I'm sorry.
Did you go to public school?
No, I went to parochial school.
What the fuck is that? What?
Catholic school.
What's the difference?
So
You went to a private school? The only Catholic school here is private.
yeah, the one right behind my house.
Better education?
Yeah, it's a lot better at this one.
At All Saints?
Yeah, versus the other ones in the city.
I mean,
It's better than
so
the
at
other two high
the
schools.
time that I went there, they were the only Catholic high school, but we had a ton of Catholic grade schools, a ton of, like all over the place. And there was just more of a private school education. Because of the smaller numbers of students,
Yeah, it's a lot smaller.
the ability for the teacher to have more of an individual basis with the students exists, And like my freshman year, my geometry teacher, he's still one of my favorite humans of all time. I created a bond with this guy. Like the first time in my life I wanted to sit down with a teacher. After school, we talked about Pink Floyd for hours. Like he got me set on a musical path that, changed and enriched my life. And he also had a way of addressing each student individually and having it, make sense. You know what I mean? Like he could explain a lesson to somebody without having to answer a bunch of questions because he didn't talk down to people. He was relatable. So, I mean, private education has its ups and downs. I don't believe in that's another topic for another time. I'm gonna table that. But
My theory is just that the government's failed. There was crack in the cities. The schools were shit. So people turned to drugs. People sold drugs to get money. People used drugs to escape. People were being told to continue to go to school, go to college, go massively in debt, delay making any money, and it's just a scam. It's so terrible.
okay, but that's documented and known. We
Yeah.
know this.
Dude, the 18-year-olds can go $60,000 in debt, but you can't get a business loan. People,
Right.
They can go to choose what you're going to do for the rest of your life at 18. You know what I'm saying? Like, what? You're 18. What else can you do at 18?
You can't even smoke cigarettes anymore.
Got a low battery. We got to switch it up real quick.
What? Really?
Yeah, it just died.
Okay. All right. That was a little thing. I think maybe that was the universe's way of telling us we got to come to a conclusion here. Mm-hmm. Because, and ultimately what I wanted to kind of get across is, and I'm just going to say this for a minute here, like what I want to get across more than anything, right, is I know there were people that knew me before I got clean. And they were like, that guy, he's just destined to fucking be a turd for the rest of his life. I had a family member that I spoke to them on the phone, and they said that they said some things that really fucking hurt. They really fucking hurt. And for the longest time, I'm like, there's no way in hell that I'd ever want to be around that person or that I could ever forgive them for what they said. And I was not willing to look at my part in that situation. That I was just a fucking drag on my family, on society, and all of those things. And now I have found this new way of life. Like, I actually have a life today. I'm not just a fucking bump on a log. I mean, well, not all the time. But I'm a contributing, productive member of society. And ultimately, what I want out of life isn't always the motivating factor. My needs need to be met first. That was something I never knew about. And what I want more than anything is to, because I'm selfish, I want to be loved and admired by all these people that hated me and said I was never going to make it. But that's an imperfect, that's in a perfect world.
Yeah.
And I know that's not going to happen.
Right.
And I'll say that when I met you, honestly, I thought you were a fucking nut job and the reason I'm saying this, right, is because the longer that I keep doing what I'm doing, I find out that I have more in common with people than I think, and I cannot judge a book by its cover. And more importantly, that everybody has something to offer. Everybody does. Right or wrong, good or bad, everybody has something to offer that can help benefit and enrich my life.
I offer red pills. like Purdue Pharma.
Yeah, red pills for the fucking reset. No.
One thing I do want to say about legalization versus decriminalization is if we just decriminalize things, it opens up, it increases demand greatly for the cartels. So now, because people don't have the fear of criminalization, there will be more people that use openly, and if they get caught, it doesn't matter, so they're not going to jail. And I think that it would create heightened demand, and the cartels would love decriminalization, where like with cannabis, what we did is we legalized the production of it in the country. So the cartels have been doing things like fentanyl and even avocados, things like that.
Decriminalization in other countries dropped the overdose rate to almost 1%. It dropped the crime rate by 4.5% in Portugal, and I think that's the place. Almost overnight.
I'm with like treatment, not punishment, obviously. But I don't want to give the cartels a huge increase in demand for their product. So something's got to be done to the cartels so they can't supply. Where I just have a hard time saying heroin's legal, but I think the way to do it is legalization, not decriminalization. And I think that if like dosage and purity were known rather than you don't know what's in it and you don't know what dose you're taking, I think that would do a lot to curb overdose. You know what I mean? Because you can't even get heroin anymore. It's like just fentanyl. You know, it's just like straight fucking fentanyl. And I don't know. I've thought about this a lot, and
I go back and forth with your point of view of saying let's just let them have at it, and I get that. Like there are
you're gonna get people who would normally not have done like heroin, and it's like so easy to get, they're gonna go fucking try it. You know what I mean?
Yeah, but and that creates a whole other issue. However, like my appeal with this is simply to say that, like, I'm not going to tell about anybody else's story except my own. Like, everybody that knew me prior to coming here and changing my way of life, a lot of them wrote me off and said, there's no fucking way I'm going to make it. And, now a lot of them say about, oh, you've always had such great potential and and that, they may mean that, they may not. That's not relevant. What's relevant is, for a time, and sure, a lot of them were saying, man, you need to get some help. And I wasn't ready to listen. Yeah. But a lot of them were straight like, man, fuck that guy. So here we are today on the internet talking about dolphin rape caves.
I mean, do you write off people right now that you see that are indulging themselves in their addiction?
Jokingly.
But
it's hard to be sarcastic. You shouldn't really be that sarcastic with it, but I follow a bunch of meme accounts that are pretty funny, dude.
I mean, on occasion I do, yeah. On some, and I feel terrible about doing that. I do because if people weren't stern with me in the beginning when I got here and told me to shut the fuck up and listen and learn, like, I probably would have gotten high and died within a year. But honesty without compassion is brutality. However, babying addicts kill addicts, and I've heard it from a few people that when you get about 5 years, you get sanctimonious and you think fucking everything. And I know I'm going through that growing pain right now of, like, I think I know a lot more than I do and I don't. But it's hard to watch people kill themselves over and over and over again and not feel that. So I can empathize with the people that wrote me off. I absolutely can. All
right. So Pete, you'd say you're an addict?
Oh, through and through until the day I die.
Through and through. What about you, Chris? Are you an addict?
What?
Are you an addict?
No.
Through and through, not an addict?
That's right.
Okay. Pete, do you think that addiction is a weakness?
No.
What about you, Chris?
What? No, I think it's a failure of government mostly.
So you don't think addiction is a weakness of character?
No, I think it's a failure of government mostly.
No, that tracks.
I think if it weren't for the government, I don't think there'd be hardly any addicts. If people had to come up and live the American dream on their own without taxes and without the schools and without the cops and without the drug war, if all that shit didn't exist and everyone was just had their liberty and freedom.
Prior to that, you had people fucking hooked on laudanum and morphine and fucking cocaine and heroin. All before all these things you're talking about.
How many people were...
The numbers are not measurable, but the case studies that existed in like the 1800s, when they started keeping records of this stuff, specifically discussed about how people were getting addicted to these things and why they had to outlaw fucking opium dens. Because people are,
yeah.
I'm not going to lie. You just mentioning that, the idea... And you guys got to forgive me for saying this, but the idea of an opium den has been my wet dream.
Oh my God.
My wet dream, bro. Just pussy on the fucking wall, smoking dope all day, sleeping, bro. Oh my God, and they're going to make me tea. Fuck yeah, bro.
But it's not all that.
I don't know. When I see it
It's not
depicted
all
in the
that-
movies, I'm like, bro.
Oh, yeah, because they're so fucking legitimate.
That's
when
what's
you
going
see-
on in a lot of these foreign countries, man. All these people that we're like fighting proxy wars against, they're having orgies and doing drugs. That's what they're doing. That's what their elites are doing. They're doing drugs and having orgies.
To come to the point where I feel like I'm the only sane person in the room.
We're trying to have nuclear families and like strong like morals and shit. Overseas, orgies and drugs. I'm telling you, that's what they're fighting for. They want to keep their orgies and their drugs, and they want us to kill ourselves. That's what it is. They want us to have a suicide cult.
So from now on, every episode starts with you getting a competency test from 3 separate psychiatrists who are not aligned with one another in any way. You'll probably pass because you're a smart guy.
I'm telling you, man, there wouldn't be any drugs in the country.
Orgies and drugs. Dolphins.
They're prosecuting the drug war against the Americans. They should be prosecuting the drug war against the cartels. They're not.
They should.
Look,
Let's just build a big, beautiful wall to keep all the drugs
You build
up.
a 50-foot wall, they'll build a 51-foot ladder. Or they'll dig under the
then
fucker.
let's
They've
invade
been doing-
Mexico.
You are in fucking sane.
You can't run for office on like, let's go to war. So what you do is you say, I'm going to build a wall. When what you really mean is we should go get those motherfuckers. But you can't run.
Well, he had 4 years to try, and he didn't.
Nah, you can't run on let's go to war, and then you don't want to go to war. Where's hell?
I don't know.
Where's hell?
War
Have you ever
is hell.
Oh.
What was that guy not making progress? Imagine if he had some time without any pushback.
Remember when we had the discussion that it wouldn't be 2-on-1 around here?
Hey, I've been getting 2-on-1 this whole episode.
I know.
I kind of liked it.
Yeah, you did. I can see it poking out your shorts.
Well, like I think in regards to addiction, I have some part of me that I don't know. Maybe my idea on addiction is a little bit different than both of yours.
What's that?
I think addiction is a weakness of character.
Really?
I think.
not.
I mean,
Elaborate.
Is it okay for some people to be weak? Not everybody's strong, right?
Maybe you can be weak at times, yeah, and then you can like grow from it, right?
Like I said, for instance, I was saying in the beginning that I believe the brain has this algorithm.
Okay.
So can you say basically some people have just this weak program going up there in their brain, and a lot
there's
of
people with weak programs
with like weak programming in their brains, and some people come from good households. The father was there, the mother was there, but then they just come out this weak person. Of which
weakness has nothing to do with it. Weakness has nothing to do with it. We have moments of weakness in our lives. Every human being does. How many times have you settled for something in your life you know is not good for you, but you know?
Without a doubt. Yeah, definitely. I'm just saying weakness is not everybody comes out strong. I believe not everybody's strong, but it's
and that
identifying.
doesn't fucking matter. We're not in Sparta where we're going to toss babies off the fucking cliff.
Oh, of course, without a doubt. Do you believe this world to be an ugly world?
No.
Is it not built for failure?
Oh, it's a fallen world for sure.
It's built for failure, correct?
It's a fallen world.
No.
Utopia, dystopia?
No, I don't believe in utopia. I believe it's simply this: you get out of this world what you put into it. So, like George Lucas wrote, the genius that he is, your focus determines your reality.
God bless George Lucas.
So, if your focus is all the bad shit and people are weak and all this other shit, then your mindset turns into, I got to get down on people. I got to escape my fucking mindset, or I'm just going to be miserable all the time. Right. And so much of my life is spent being angry and focusing on things that are A, beyond my control, and B, without a doubt, unfixable by my fucking hands. So if I'm to sit here and say, well, the world is just this terrible place, in the last 4.5 years, the beautiful things that I have seen that I never A, witnessed were here before, or B, didn't think were possible, that have come true, that I've seen with my own fucking eyes and felt with my soul, right? Wouldn't exist in this terrible fucking weak world that you're trying to paint for me.
Right. I think once you've seen like the better side of life, I think it's hard for you to like go back. I just think that a lot of people, whether it's their schooling or their family life or how, and even if your parents are there, you know, maybe you're not getting brought, you know, you're getting
maybe you're weak.
Maybe you're getting told, you know, you're pushing off making money to go into debt. And I just don't agree with the way that the government and the schools and the teachers and the people all push you to go to college, delay making money, delay taking care of yourself, delay, go in debt. I just think, and then they print a shit ton of money and now your money's not worth shit and you're in debt. I just think it's a scam. It's been a scam.
It is. And that is, and sure.
And so people get frustrated and they're like, I'm going to do drugs in college or, you know, high school, whatever, instead. And then they find, oh, this is fun. This is better than what they were telling me to do. I'm just going to get high.
And they get spun
and
the
then
fuck out.
Yeah, then it goes too far. Yeah.
And that's a lot of people's story, I'm sure.
Yeah.
And you know,
if you were coming up learning a trade from like first grade on, learning how to make money, work with your hands, work for yourself, and you were busy waking up, going to work, doing things, people depended on you. You had goals and aspirations that were bigger than I got to wait to go to college so I can make money when I'm 24 and start paying back this debt. It's stupid. It's a dumbass system. The whole thing.
There's a fallacy in that, or there's a faulty in that, because look at best example you could take is like a fucking rock star. Okay, look at Eric Clapton. He got so spun the fuck out on heroin, and he's a millionaire. So he has everything in life that he wants. Everything. He is doing something he loves to do for a living, and he is getting paid ridiculous amounts of money to do it. And he got so spun out on heroin, he almost died. Yeah. George Harrison had to have a fucking concert to snap him out of it.
Yeah.
And, you know, and now he's been in recovery for a number of years. And understanding that notion, he builds a fucking treatment center for rich elites. Okay?
Yeah.
And he makes a form of recovery exclusive to people with fucking money.
Yeah, that's something else I don't like is all the ways the treatment, all after you're an addict. Nothing. It should be
no prevention.
Yeah, there's no prevention.
Well, we had DARE. We had Just Say No, and look how great that.
I think that, but it was in the school. It was failed program again, a government funded program. It failed.
And so, but the point here is that you can come up in the trades. Okay,
trades lead. I mean, there's a lot of drugs in the trades.
Yeah.
But,
can I ask you guys both one question? What do you guys think the best prevention from this horrible lifestyle will be?
The best prevention?
What's that seed? Yeah, the best prevention. So we're not yet.
For me personally,
let's say you like from toddler, from what would be the best way to keep this newborn going in a good path?
Be brought up on a farm, having to wake up at the crack of dawn and work all day, and not worry about going to school.
Them Amish folk are really happy, if you ever notice, with their beards.
I don't notice. I don't know that there's a way. If you're an addict, you're an addict. And that's I don't believe it to be a moral deficiency. I don't believe it to be a result of the government. I believe it to be, if you are born with the obsession and compulsion to make yourself experience something other than what you're feeling, and that you'll go to any lengths to get that no matter what there's no amount of prevention. There's only something that you can do to understand that you have this issue and then combat it. I mean, and the reason that I say this is because for as long as I can remember, like, I didn't grow up poor. I used to tell that lie that I did so I could get people to feel sorry for me. But I'm an only child, so I got everything I ever wanted. Everything. I had every fucking toy. If somebody in the neighborhood got a 10-speed bike, I got a 21-speed bike. You know?
Yeah.
Now, I would throw fits if I couldn't get my meal supersized. I would fucking lose my shit if I didn't get to the movie and I was first in line the day Jurassic Park came out.
1993 Jurassic Park?
Yes, I'm actually on the front page of the Bay City Times for that with my mom.
Bro, that was the last movie I went to see before I went to the Middle East.
Really?
Yeah, that's
Were
one of
you
my...
here in Bay City when you saw it?
Yep.
We were there. Same time.
Core memory. How wild is that?
I was 12.
I was 4.
I am not that much older than you.
You're an old fuck.
How old are you?
Right now, I'm 34.
Shut the fuck up.
Yeah.
So on that note, we're going to close. I don't think there's a way to prevent, and that's just me. You know, I think some people are addicts and they never get to substances. They tweak the fuck out on porn, on fucking lottery, on working, spending money, hookers.
Yeah, man, I don't know. It might be too that America in particular, the West in particular, is particularly susceptible to addiction because we have the luxury of being addicts, where like our homeless people are even overweight. In some countries, we have a calorie surplus. You know, there's not a lot of even our homeless are overweight. Where in some countries there's a calorie deficit where it's hard to eat. You know what I'm saying? Like you're worried about food and water and shit. Yeah. Like you're not.
Sounds like the country's breeding weak people.
Everywhere breeds weak people. Everywhere breeds weak people. Everywhere breeds strong people, and everywhere breeds Pete's.
I ain't never seen a Pete until I met you.
What the fuck is a Pete?
Somewhere in between Cro-Magnon and Neanderthal. Magnon and Neanderthal.
The Phoenix Suns are getting roasted online.
Well, where did that come from all of a sudden?
Because they're getting roasted. They lost Game 7.
He's just been following sports this whole time.
Yeah, I know. Well, right. I think I think we're way over time, and we're going to have to cut some stuff. Like mainly anything Chris had to say. So from the creatine compound, I'm Pete.
I'm Chris.
And I'm Yusuf. And if you see any little Richie Cunningham looking motherfucker from Happy Days, that's a fucking dolphin coming at you, trying to fucking offer you some milkshakes or to come sit at his booth, say no. Ladies and gentlemen, you guys just understand this, that we really have a true epidemic of raping ass dolphins that are trying to befriend your girlfriend, then they're going to steal your girlfriend and then smash you later.
Are you high right now?
I hope I can go to sleep tonight. That was a lot of coffee. It's late.
I had a Red Bull earlier and 2 cups of coffee while I was there.
I had a couple energy drinks today, and I'm supposed to quit those.
So was I.
I sleep standing up.
Balls.
Do you really? Now?
Yeah, like Batman upside down, you fuck.
I actually do sleep like.
All right, well, we're gonna go bye-bye. Okay, bye-bye.
No, I'm busy tonight, actually.